Heya, how are we going today? Do you know any language nerds who are also tabletop role-playing game nerds? Because I think I have the perfect game for them. This is Dialect from Thorny Games. Dialect is a game that actually has multiple settings. Rather than being a game set in one place and time, it is a game centered around a theme: how languages grow and die. There are 12 backdrops to choose from. Generally, these backdrops reflect the story of an isolated or marginalized group. These groups provide the inspiration for the characters that the players will create. Some of these settings are an English boarding school, a pack of wild wolves, and a group of people holed up in an apartment hiding from a deadly disease. Dialect is designed to be a single session game for a group of players. While there is no game master, generally the person who has a copy of the rules or is familiar with it will be the facilitator. While they are still involved in the storytelling, generally it's entrusted to someone to help guide the other players along in this journey. Firstly, each player is dealt 3 cards with an archetype on them. The player then chooses the archetype they like best to play. This archetype will provide inspiration for the character that they'll make. These archetypes come with a title and a rough descriptor of how they function or operate within the group. Then there are aspects. Aspects are created by the players by answering 2 pre-written questions for each scenario. These answers are then written on cards and placed on the table. The third aspect they get to create by themselves. For me personally, I think this game is best played with a large sheet of craft paper, as you are drawing connections between the words that you will create and the various aspects and ages that the game goes through. You could also use index cards and string and maybe some small markers. The inspiration for what words you will create will be found in a deck that comes with this game. The card will describe a concept and you and the players work together to name that concept in this setting. There are a lot of resources included in this book for creating words. So if that part feels daunting, don't worry, there's a lot you can lean on. You could combine, shorten, or borrow words from other languages. Once a word or phrase is created, it is written on an index card and connected to the aspect that it relates to. Sometimes the concepts on the card might change how the turn order proceeds, but you are guided through this process by both the book and the cards, so it isn't too complicated. The game session is divided up into 3 ages: about the development of the community, how the community faces challenges, and the eventual collapse of that community as it comes in contact with the outside world. The collapse of this community doesn't necessarily have to be tragic. It's about how this isolated group gets integrated into a larger society. This is a pretty slim book and it's packed with a lot of content. While these mechanics aren't necessarily conventional for a tabletop role-playing game, they are pretty easy to grasp and simple to play. There's also numerous diagrams throughout the book on how to run the game on the table, so you are unlikely to get completely lost. I also like that they provide a guide for writing your own backdrop. I think the backdrops provided give a lot of opportunities for replay, even in the same quote-unquote scenario. But it is nice to have the option to create your own, if any of them don't appeal or you've played them all to death. There's also a really well set out table of contents, a glossary of terms, and a couple of things about safety mechanics in this game. I also have to give a shout out to the artwork. It's very unique and there's a strong unifying color with red featuring a lot throughout the book. I paid about $49 for this book and its accompanying deck, and I think that's very reasonable. I've seen hardcover games this size go for about $100. This is a very carefully crafted game. There isn't really a lot of room for role-playing outside of each of the ages or the words, as most of the roleplay experiences are based around the creation or the use of the word in universe. Rather than an open-ended game for multiple sessions, this is a tight, short game based around a theme. For a group that enjoys dungeon crawls and combat, this is probably not a game for them, but if your group is willing to humor a slightly more intellectual style game, I think there's a lot of opportunity for some interesting and enjoyable gameplay. I really like the random chance that the deck of cards provide. I think it makes for a really interesting roleplay experience and exchanges the use of dice. I really like the randomization that the cards provide. It's a bit less swingy than you would get usually with a set of dice, but it's still really interesting. I think it'd be really fun if an expansion zine came out eventually with new backdrops and new cards. I think this game could be a harder sell for a more traditional role-playing game group, but I think if you are interested in variety in your gaming and you've got a group that enjoys a little bit of intellectualism or discussion of languages, it would be a lot of fun. If you know someone who enjoys linguistics, absolutely tell them about this game. I think the enthusiasm this game has for languages is infectious and you can feel it just reading the manual. It's definitely not a conventional game, but I think that's its greatest strength. So these were my thoughts on Dialect. What do you think of games that are written to be played in a single session? Do you enjoy them or do you prefer longer campaigns? Let me know down in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's video, I encourage you to hit the like and subscribe button or to share it with someone. It just keeps me going and lets me know that I'm doing something that you guys enjoy. And I hope to see you next time at the gaming table. Bye!